how it came across. So sometimes we do that and we don't realize that. But if we're going to impact our community, if we're going to build bridges in our community, we want to be like that verse. We want to use wise words that benefit people. We want our words to benefit those around us. So let's look at what the Bible says about communication. What are some tools that you and I can use to communicate? So we're going to look at four. The first one is simply this: earn trust. It's earn trust. If we're going to communicate with people, the bottom line, the very first thing that has to happen is we have to earn people's trust. This is why we need to be involved in our community. As Trevor was talking about this morning, all the things that we're doing in our community, people need to get to know who Compass Church is before they'll trust us. That's just how it is. They need to know who we are. They need to see that we're the real deal. They need to actually understand that we care about their lives, not just about the people that are already here. That we care about our community, and we care about the people in our community no matter who they are. And he talked about the carnival yesterday. It was a great example of being out in the community so people could actually see who we were. And we had a lot of people come up to us and talk to us about who we are and what's going on and what we're up to. And it was a great opportunity to do that. The fourth Fridays are going to be a great opportunity to do that same thing. We went over to Pocomoke Landing around Easter time. Another opportunity to show people who we are and we're actually the real deal, that we want to help people along the way. So if we're not in the community, we're not going to be able to earn the community's trust. So that's one of the big factors that we've talked about, is staying in the community and staying connected to things. But we also get trust by what we say. Not just by the things that we do, but by what we say. So one of the things that we talked about is we said we want to be a church that wherever we are, we leave it better than we found it. That's one of the things that Pastor Trevor and I have talked about a lot. So when we moved into the right place now, we said we want to leave it better than we found it. And y'all are doing a great job at doing that when we leave there. But here's what happened at the right place now. When we moved in there, you'll remember the children were way back in the back room in the back. And it was because that room out front where they're meeting now is a place where they use for banquets and birthday parties and stuff. And they keep it set up because they rent it out. And what happened was she said, I'd rather have you in the back so we don't have to reset that. Well, several weeks ago, we said, we really need to move to the front. So we talked to Dr. Wright, and it was interesting what she said. She said to us, yes, you can use that front room. And basically she said, because I trust you now. Mm-hmm. Basically, that's what she said to us. And she said, sometimes when people come in, you don't have that trust, but you have to earn that over time. And I know you all will put it back exactly like you found it. So it's not just saying we're going to put things back and better than they were. We're actually doing that. So in that example, we see that over and over again. If we will do that, if we will do what we say we're going to do, you're earning trust. You're helping people build that trust. So just a couple of things that we've done over time to do that. So keep up the good work doing that. Our words and our lives have to match. And if they don't match, what does the world look at the church and they go, they're just a bunch of hypocrites, right? But if our words and our lives match, then the world's going to say, they got something that I need. And it'll help connect people as we do. If people don't trust our words, we can't point them to Jesus. If they don't trust us, there's no way we can do that. So it all begins with trust. Jesus said it like this: let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more comes from evil. He says, be clear about what you say. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Basically, that's what he's saying there. If you say anything that causes people to mistrust you, they're not going to pay attention to you. So we have to make sure it's yes and no. Sometimes we say things because we think that's what people want to hear. Anybody guilty? I mean, we all do it because that's what we think people want to hear. And we don't say everything that we should, or we don't say the clear truth. And what happens? They find out what the truth is, and then they mistrust you. You didn't tell me everything. You didn't tell me the whole truth about it. And that's easy to do, isn't it? So we got to be careful. We got to be intentional. Sometimes when people do that, anything else you say, they're not going to trust what you say once that happens. Are they really telling? Sometimes we cause people to question our words. Maybe you've said this and I've said this before. How many times have you said, you can trust me on this one? What did that just say? Everything else I said you can't trust, but you can trust this one? I mean, we don't think about it when we say it, but we say things like that. Honestly, it's true. What everything else I said wasn't really true? I mean, it makes people question, like, so you got to be careful what you say, because people will begin to question things. Not, you don't mean it that way, but that's how it comes across sometimes. So we have to, whatever we say, we actually have to do, and we have to be clear about it. So let your yes be yes and your no be no. So I wrote down just some things that break trust when it comes to communication. Let me give you 4 things real quick. The first one is not telling the truth. That's pretty clear, isn't it? Not telling the truth. Tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? So that'll break it. Building people up to get what you want, that will break trust. When you're building somebody else up to get what you want, what is that called?
Manipulation.
Manipulation. And people see right through that. And all of a sudden you've broken the trust. They're only doing that because they want this, because I can give them this. Breaking promises, that's a big one, isn't it? When we break a promise, we break trust. And then the one that I struggle with is being silent. Anybody struggle with that one? So for a long time in our marriage, this was a problem, because Bambi would tell me something and I wouldn't say a word. I was silent because I'm a contemplator. So I have to think through, how am I going to solve this? How am I going to work this out? And I wouldn't say anything, nothing. And within a few days, she would take it on herself and she'd do it. And then I'd get mad because, like, she did it, and she just moved forward and I didn't give her an answer. And it was because I was thinking through it. So it's taken us a long time. I have to say to her, let me think on that. Give me a couple days and let me think on that. Because when you have silence, all of a sudden you've broken that trust, like you're not even doing anything about it. So that's one I struggle with. I don't know which one you struggle with. but that's the one that I struggle with. So sometimes when we do things like that, it causes people to mistrust us and break that trust. So good communication starts with trust, and trust takes time. There's no doubt about it. You earn trust over time. People need to see that you are who you say you are before they will believe what you say. They need to see it before they will believe it and trust you. So let's continue to be present in our community and continue to build trust in the things that we say. Second tool to build better communication is to guard my thoughts. To guard my thoughts. Now, why is that important? Look what Jesus said. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So it says whatever's overflowing in your heart, whatever's happening there, it's going to come out. It's going to come out of your mouth. Our thoughts become words the longer we think about them. If we keep thinking about something over and over again, it's going to come out. We're going to have, those words are going to come out eventually. And it's going to affect our relationships and what we say to people. So if somebody says something to you about somebody else, all of a sudden what happens? You start thinking about that over and over again. And when you see them, you treat them differently and you talk to them differently because of what somebody has said. And the truth is, you never saw that person like that. But because you've been thinking about it, you've been contemplating, you've been rolling it over and over again. That's why we do that. Jesus said this: your souls aren't harmed by what you eat, but by what you think and by what you say. But I thought about this. Our souls are harmed when we eat the words of others and we don't see those things for ourselves. When we actually take in words from somebody else and we didn't see that ourselves, it can harm our soul. But he says your souls aren't harmed by what you eat, but by what you think and the things that you say. When you internalize your wrong thoughts, what happens? You have wrong words. It starts to happen. Now, you might keep those thoughts in the back of your mind. You might put them back there and say, I'm just going to put them in the back. But you've heard it, and you keep rolling it over back there in your mind. And what happens? It eventually creeps to the front, doesn't it? It comes to the front, and when it gets to the front, it comes out the lips, right? And all of a sudden you go, did I just say that? Like, where did that come from? It's because you've been thinking about it over and over and over again. That's how our thoughts do. Jesus said it's the overflow of the heart that actually comes out of the mouth. That's what happens. So as we reach out to our community, one of the most important things that Pastor Trevor said last week was we need to see people like Jesus sees people. We need to see people like Jesus sees people. Not what somebody said to you about that group of people, but how Jesus sees them. Because every person has value, and when we think about it and we focus on the value, what will come out of our mouth? Something that lends value to that person, not what somebody else has told us about that person. We need a change of heart in order to have a change of mind and a change of speech. I put this down: a healthy heart brings healthy words. A healthy heart will bring healthy words in our life. However, it's not just our words that affect other people and affect communication. I heard a lot of you say this around the room. It's our ears too. You gotta listen. So the next one is listen more than I talk. We could probably stop there and go home, couldn't we? Listen more than I talk. Now you've heard this probably a 1,000 times in your life. Why did God give you 2 ears and 1 mouth? To listen twice as much as you speak. If you haven't heard that, my grandmother used to say that all the time. James said it like this: don't ever forget that it's best to listen much. I like the way he said that. Speak little. Listen much and speak little, and do not become angry. What great advice. Listen much. Why? We don't do well with this one most of the time. Why? Because we want to speak. We want to interject what we have. It's hard to focus and listen to what somebody is saying in that moment. Some research shows that we only hear about 20% of what people say around us. That's pretty small, isn't it? We only hear about 20% of what others say around us. And when we do, it can get us into trouble. So look what the Bible says. It's stupid and embarrassing to give an answer before you listen. Anybody been there? He says it's stupid and embarrassing. How many times have we done that? I know many times I've done that. I made a comment and I'm like, man, I shouldn't have said that. Like, I should have thought through that before I said that thing. Look at this one in Proverbs chapter 21. Keep your mouth closed and you'll stay out of trouble. In other words, keep those words in and you won't have to worry about it. Not only can you get embarrassed, but you can get in some big trouble by not listening. And the consequences most of the time are broken relationships. Usually when we don't listen and we speak into that, we can cause a relationship to be broken. And many of those can never be repaired back because of the damage that we've done, just simply because we weren't listening and hearing what the people were saying. Look what the writer of Proverbs says again. You keep putting your foot in your mouth, be sensible, and turn off the flow. How do you turn off the flow? Open your ears, right? Close your mouth and open your ears, and you turn off the flow. He says, stop talking and start listening. Now, it's harder to listen to somebody than to talk to somebody. Wouldn't you agree with that? It's a whole lot harder to listen. It takes focus in our life. It incorporates more than just the ears. It incorporates the eyes. Some of you said this when we talked about communication. Body language is a big deal. And if you're not watching with your eyes, you're probably not communicating very well if you see some responses and you're not paying attention to those responses. Just different kinds of gestures that people have. Just a roll of the eyes sometimes can tell you, I don't need to go there, right? I mean, just things like that can happen. The mind also is involved because you need some undivided attention if you're going to listen. I don't care how good you are. You can't listen and watch a TikTok video at the same time. You just can't do it. And that's not the way we're wired. But somehow we think we can. We think we can scroll our phone and listen to somebody at the same, and it's not happening. It takes a lot of work to listen. Because it's not just our ears, but it's our eyes, it's our mind, it's everything focused on that person to be able to listen. I think that's why research shows about 20% of things, we only gather about 20% of what people say. Because we're not focused on that. We're really not focused on what's going on, and we need that in order to understand. So I'm going to give you some suggestions for some listening skills. So if you want to jot these down, you can use the word listen for these skills, and here they are real quickly. First, L, look at people. Look them in the eye when you're listening to them, and you'll get a lot more of what they're saying. Second, invest in people. In other words, see everyone with value just like Jesus does. So invest in people. The S is stop whatever you're doing and focus your attention. In that moment, stop. The T is think about what you're saying, not what you're going to say next. Anybody guilty? Think about what they're saying in that moment, not what you're going to say in response to that. Or not trying to guess the end of the story when they're telling a story. Now that's a hard one, isn't it? If you're sitting with somebody that's a storyteller and they have these long stories, you want to go, just get to the end, right? but you're not listening, you're just listening for the end of the story. That's all you're doing. So listen in that way. Think about what they're saying. The E is engage with them. Understand what they're feeling and what they're going through. Sometimes in this phase, you can ask questions to help draw out some things, kind of figure out what is it going on? What is it that they're trying to say? Because they're probably struggling with communication just like you are. So you're trying to figure out what it is they're trying to say. And then the end is notice the body language, and then this table said this over here, and the tone of your voice. Tone makes all the difference in the world. Baby will tell me sometimes, she says, but it's the way you said it. Right? It's the tone of your voice. Don't mean anything by that, it just comes out that way. 55% of our communication is body language, 30% is tone of voice. The way it comes across from the way we say it. And it's even more important if we're going to really hear what somebody's saying to us. We need to listen. And if we're going to impact our community, we've got to hear our community. Not what we think our community needs, not what we've come up with, but what's actually happening in our community. We've got to hear them. So we got to understand through listening the felt needs that are in our community. What are people struggling with? We can assume what it is, but we need to hear it from people and figure out what are people struggling with, because as we help them meet those felt needs in their life, we can lead them to the real need, and we know that's Jesus, right? We can point them to Jesus. But we got to hear it. We got to listen. We got to meet people where they are. And how do we know where they are? We got to listen. We got to find out where people are. And then finally, the last one is choose my words carefully. Isn't that interesting? First, we got to earn trust. Second, we got to get the right thoughts in our mind. Thirdly, we got to listen, and then finally, we should speak. So it's a long ways before we get there, isn't it? It's a lot of foundational things. So we can speak more effectively and with more clarity if we choose our words carefully and think through things when we talk to people. I love this verse in Proverbs. Look what the writer said. Thoughtless words can wound as deeply as any sword, but wisely spoken words can heal. And boy, how true that is. Thoughtless words. When we talk without even considering what we're saying, when we're just talking, we can hurt people without even knowing it. We can hurt them sometimes without even knowing it because we haven't listened to them. We don't know where they are. We don't know what's going on in their life. And we can say something that can damage that relationship pretty heavily and not even know that we said that in that moment. But I thought it was interesting. He didn't say mean words cut like a sword, but we know they do, right? But he said just thoughtless words. Just because we didn't think through it, we weren't careful about what we said, they can cut like a sword as well. They can wound a relationship that we've been trying to build for a while in just one sentence, in 1 second, if we don't think about what we're saying. It can shatter a child's heart. It can break someone's dream. It can drive a wedge between you and a neighbor. It can do all kinds of things by not just thinking about the things that we're saying and letting those words come out. However, notice what he said. Wise words can heal. Wise words can bring healing, and they can bring help in people's lives. So the right word at the right time can change somebody's life. Think about that for a minute. Somewhere along the line, somebody said the right words at the right time in your life, and it changed your life. They said something to you, and you said, man, I never saw that before. You might not have realized it in that moment, but you probably go back and say, because of what that person said to me, it changed the direction of my life. So the right words at the right time can change somebody's life. When you say to somebody, I believe in you, it can take a person that's made a big mistake and they're worried about this mistake, and it can become their greatest ministry in their life because you said to them, I believe in you. You can do this. Maybe you said to somebody, you have what it takes. It can take somebody that's reluctant and turn them into a person of confidence. Just simple words at the right time, carefully thought through words at the right time can change somebody's life. So building a relational bridge with people in our community, we have to carefully think through what we're saying and how we say it to people if we want to build that bridge. So our world is filled with broken people everywhere, and everyone needs to experience the healing that verse is talking about, but the healing that comes from Christ and the forgiveness that he brings. And many people have been wounded deeply by well-meaning Christians. So when they hear the word church, they're like kind of opposed to that. So we got to think about what we say, and we need to say it very carefully what we say to people, because we know that all the answers are found in Jesus, pointing people to Jesus. And we don't want to turn them off, we want to bring them closer to Jesus. So as Compass Church, as individuals, we want to choose our words clearly and wisely, and not push people away, but help them to come to Jesus so they can experience true healing, and they can have that forgiveness that only he brings in their life. So I gave you this for an action step today. It's simply this: which tool do I need to implement in bridge building in my communication? Now, if you're like me, you probably write down all 4 of them. But which one do you need? Which one would you say would make the most impact in my communication if I implemented this one? Would it be earning trust? Would it be guarding my thoughts, thinking about things, listening more than I talk? We all probably could write that one down. Or choosing my words carefully. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Take out one of those Connect cards and write that one on the Connect card. Put your name on the front, but write that on the Connect card. And Pastor Trevor will get those this week, and we'll be praying for you in that area. Because I don't know about you, but I need some help in this area. I need some prayer in this area. Because we all struggle with communication. And if we're going to build bridges into our community, we need to communicate in a way that people understand that who Jesus is, and we need to point people to Jesus so they can connect with Jesus, because we know that's where real healing takes place. So let's pray together. God, we thank you this day for who you are. God, thank you for how you show up in our lives and you communicate with us in so many different ways. But God, we admit today that we struggle with communication. We just do. So God, we need your help. So in these moments, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Whatever area you wrote down on your card, just say that in your mind or in your heart to God and say, God, help me in this area. God, we need your power through your Holy Spirit to help us to be able to be better communicators, because we know that Jesus is the answer, God, that he can bring healing and hope in people's lives in a broken world. And God, we don't want to be a hindrance, but we want to be a help so that people can connect with you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, guys, that pretty much concludes the service today. Thank you guys for coming out and enjoying this beautiful weather. Next week should be we should be back over as normal, and Dr. Red plays at 10:30. So if that changes, I will text you guys. Also, again, like Gordon said, with the Connect cards, if you want to help me out with those, you can bring them up and just put them right here on this table. I've got mine already filled out too, so I'll put it over here, and I'll get those. If you guys need anything, come see me, come talk to me. I'm excited. We've got a lot coming up. Summer's here, which has a lot of benefit and a lot of hot weather. So just I don't know where I'm going with that. Actually, I was getting ready to go. One of our series coming up is going to be Don't Get Burned. So I'm already getting burned with the weather we've been having recently. So we finally have summer here. So, but we love you guys. Need anything, just reach out. You guys have a great day. And if you want to help gather things up, don't forget your kids.
Come on.
Please don't forget your kids.
Isn't that
Part of our outreach? No, our outreach is not
childcare?
take childcare beyond the service. So, all right, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.